All right, we are back, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We are getting into maybe the final stages of the appendices of Lord of the Rings. I don't know if that's actually the case. I'm gonna turn the light on because I forgot about that. We've been working our way through the appendices ever since we finished up reading the text of the novel and chewing our way through bit by bit. Today's episode is going to be the next part of, I think we're still in Appendix A. This is the part that says here follows a part of the tale of Aragorn and Arwen. So this is I vaguely remember this. I can't remember if this has to do with them after they got married or if this is just the story of them before, like when they first met. It's been a very long time since I've read this, so I'm interested to get into this. As always, if this is your first time tuning in, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all those good things. This is the series that's been going on for a while now, since I think May of 2022, um, or March of 2020. I don't remember anymore. It's been a while. We've done a lot of episodes. Worked our way through The Hobbit, Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King. Now we're in the appendices. Then we're going to do the Silmarillion. Every Monday we do a new episode. Stay tuned for this. Also, don't forget Decoding Dune, which is a series that just started recently here on the channel, and we're covering a sci-fi novel, in this case Dune by Frank Herbert. But this is the Mondays of Middle Earth. It's all about all the works of j.r.r. Tolkien. Support if you can. Membership, super chat, super thanks, all those good things. Let's get into the text here. So we start off talking about lineage. Once again, always lineage things going on here about Eredor, grandfather of the king, his son Arathorn sought in marriage Gilrain the Fair, the daughter of Deerhail, who was a descendant of Aronarth. Um, it said Gilrain was young and not reached the age at which women of the Dunedain were accustomed to marry, and uh, Deerhell was not exactly pleased. Like Arathorn is a stern man of full age, will be chieftain sooner than men looked for, and my heart forebodes that he will be short-lived. But his wife answered, then more need of haste. If they're wed now, babies can happen. So then, when Arathorn and Gilrain had been married only a year, Eredor was taken by hill trolls and slain, and Arathorn became chieftain of the Dunedain. Eredor was taken by. I had to make sure I read that correctly. When Arathorn and Gilrain had been married for 1 year, Eredor was taken by hill trolls. Okay. Arathorn became chieftain. The next year, Gilrain bore him a son, and he was called Aragorn. But when Aragorn was only 2 years old, Arathorn was slain by an orc arrow that pierced him through his eye. And so he did indeed prove to be short-lived for his race. Only 60 years old when he fell, which is pretty short time period for a Númenórean or a man of Númenórean descent. Aragorn at this point became the default heir of Isildur, but was taken with his mother to dwell in the house of Elrond, and it says that Elrond became like a father to him and called him Estel, meaning hope. And his true name and lineage were kept secret at the bidding of Elrond, for the wise knew that the enemy was searching to see if any of the heirs remained on Earth. Okay, so when Estel was only 20, he returned to Rivendell after great deeds in the company of the sons of Elrond. And Elrond looked at him and was pleased, for see, he saw that he was everything a man should become in Middle Earth, fair and noble. And it says here he would grow yet greater in body and mind. It says that door, and from that day thereafter, from 20 years of age, Elrond began to use his true name, told him who he was and whose son he was, and delivered to him the heirlooms of his house. This is so important because this is a lot different than the film version that people saw. He gets the Ring of Barahir, and also the Shards of Narsil. He says, with these you may yet do great deeds, for I foretell that the span of your life shall be greater than the measure of men, unless evil befalls you or you fail the test. But the test will be hard and long. The scepter of Unuminous I withhold, for you have yet to earn it. Ooh hoo 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 hoo. So the Shards of Narsil are really important because in the film version they're on like a pedestal in Rivendell, and that's not the case in the books. In the books, Aragorn carries them with him as a constant reminder of his lineage, along with the ring. It says here, this is when poor Aragorn, he doesn't know what's about to happen. The next day at sunset, Aragorn was walking alone in the woods, and his heart was high within him. I mean, he's riding high hog right now. His dad just called him by his name. He learned his heritage. He's like, I am the son of the king. I am the foretold chosen one. I am gonna do great things. Look at the heirlooms that I have. He's feeling very full of himself. Um, the world was fair. He was high on hope, and suddenly, even as he sang, he saw among the white stems of the birches a maiden walking on a greensward, and he halted, amazed, thinking that perhaps he had stumbled upon a dream, or else he had received the gift of elven minstrels, who can make the things of which they sing appear before the eyes of those that listen. Ah, ha, ha, ha! Aragorn had been singing the Lay of Luthien, which tells of the meeting of Luthien and Beren in the forest of Neldoreth, and behold, there Luthien walked before him, in Rivendell, clad in a mantle of silver and blue, fair as the twilight, in elven home, her dark hair straight in sudden wind, and her brows were bound with gems like stars. Aragorn had no chance, none whatsoever, because everyone said she was Luthien reborn. So she had that beauty, that one in a million, you know, beauty of the elves, all elves being beautiful, but she had that I am the most beautiful of all the elves. Um, Aragorn gazed in silence for a moment, fearing that the vision would pass, and he called to her, crying out, Tunuviel, Tunuviel, even as Beren had done in the elder days. And she turned to him and smiled and said, Why do you call me by that name? Who are you? Like, joking with him. And he's like, Oh, I thought you were indeed Luthien Tunuviel, whom I was singing, but if you're not she, then you walk in her likeness. And Arwen responds gravely, This is the most important thing. So many have said. So she knows that she is beautiful. But she also has humbleness here. Her name is not mine, though perhaps my doom will not be unlike hers. But who are you? Oh, who am I, my dear? Estel I was called, but I am Aragorn, Arathorn's son, Isildur's heir, Lord of the Dunedain. Yet even in the saying he felt that his high lineage, in which his heart had rejoiced, was now of little worth, and as nothing compared to her dignity and loveliness. Um. Oh, so she laughs here and says, I am Arwen, Elrond's daughter, and also named Undumil. Ah, Aragorn replies, It's often seen that in dangerous days men hide their chief treasures, yet I marvel at Elrond and your brothers, for even though I have dwelt in this house since childhood, 20 years he's been here. Well, we don't know exactly, but from childhood, so, maybe 15 years. I've never heard of you, I've never seen you. How is this possible that I've been here all this time? And basically, he finds out that she's been living in the land of her mother's kin in Lothlorien and just returned to the house of her father. Aragorn amazes at this because she doesn't appear to be any older than he is. Um, yeah, so she said, Arwen looked in his eyes and said, Do not wonder, for the children of Elrond have the life of the Eldar. So, she's an elf here. Ah, then Aragorn was abashed, for he saw the elven light in her eyes and the wisdom of many days. Yet from that hour he loved. A poor guy. Oh man. Ooh, and he becomes very somber after this. Very. It says, in the days that followed, Aragorn became silent, and his mother perceived that something had happened to him. Right. He finally, after her poking and prodding at him for quite some time, um, yields to her questions and tells him, "Mom, I'm in love. I saw this elven woman. You're never gonna believe it. Oh my God." And his mom literally says, "My son, your aim is high, even for the descendant of kings." Ah. It is not fit that mortal should wed with elfkin. So we're getting the very first um, sort of it's prohibited. Of course, his first response is, "It's happened before, Mom. In fact, within our own lineages." And his mom's like, "Yeah, but that was a long time ago in a different time when the world was completely different. Um, I don't think you have the goodwill. I don't think you're gonna have the goodwill of Elrond in this matter." Oh, oh my goodness. And of course, Aragorn is being dramatic. He's just like, Alas, bitter will my life be. I will walk in the wild alone and in shadow if I can't have her. Oh my goodness. Oh, it says here though, his mother had the measure of foresight of her people. She said no more to Aragorn of her foreboding, nor did she speak to anyone of what her son had told her. However, Elrond sees many things, and one day he called Aragorn to his chamber and said, Hey buddy, listen up. There's a great doom that awaits you. Your future is very unclear to me because of the lineage. Um, Many years of trial before you. You shall neither have a wife nor bind any woman to you in troth until your time comes you are found worthy of it. And Aragorn became very troubled at this and like, did my mom rat me out? Like, and Elrond says, no, your own eyes have betrayed you. I've seen you lusting after my daughter. Uh, but I do not speak of my daughter alone. Of course, I'm doing this for the good of all. You shall be betrothed to no man's child as yet. But as for Arwen, the fair lady of Ilmaris and Lorien, ever star people, she is of lineage greater than yours, and has lived in the world already so long that he's like, basically, you're like nothing but a little sprout in the grass to her. She is far too above you, and I think it may well seem to her. Oh man. So it's first and foremost, he's like, you can't have her. She's too far above you. But then he does go on and tell him about the doom of the elves, of the doom of the Eldar. Um, hey everyone, Renfail here with the commercial part of the video where I say, hey, if you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And thanks to all of our supporters are here on YouTube and over on Patreon, our highest members, our guild champions, Crazy's Relative, Remy D here on YouTube. And don't forget, if you want to support, it's really easy. You can do the memberships below, the Adventurers Guild, 3 different tiers. There's also the super thanks on any uploaded video or YouTube short that you find. There's also, of course, the super chats and stickers that you could do on any live stream or premiere, and the Patreon page if you want to dive into the fantasy world that I have with my brother and my wife, which is a tabletop game, a point and click adventure game, and a fantasy book series. All are great ways to keep this channel going and me going full time. Thanks again for those of you who support. Let's get back to the video that you're watching now. Oh, this is a very interesting thing. So Elrond is basically telling Aragorn at this point that my daughter's future is to basically stay here, live as an elf until I decide to leave the shores of this realm. And when I depart, should she choose to go with me, that's her fate. Her fate is to go with me into the West. And Aragorn kind of sees into this and he's like, but if the choice is up to your children, to either part with you or Middle Earth, why? How can you claim to know what's going to happen with her? And and Elrond basically replies that there will be no choice before Arwen, my daughter, unless you, Aragorn, Arathorn's son, come between us and bring one of us, you or me, to a bitter parting beyond the end of the world. You do not yet know what you desire of me. He sighed then, he said, and looked gravely upon the young man and said again, the years will bring what they will. We will speak no more of this until many more of those have passed. There is much evil to come. But Elrond is basically saying, my daughter is way above you. Don't mess with her. No. I don't want that doom upon my daughter. Um, and at this point, Aragorn decides that I'm gonna leave Rivendell. Like, there's nothing for me here. But it says he did so lovingly. He didn't just leave in anger. It was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna go see the world for a time. I need to think things through. I need to clear my head, take a cold shower, as it were, out in the real world. He went out into the world, and it says here for nearly 30 years he labored in the cause against Sauron and became a friend to Gandalf, and made many perilous journeys. But as the years wore on, he went more and more alone. His ways were hard and long, and he became grim to look upon, unless he chanced to smile. And then he seemed to men worthy of honor, as a king in exile, but that's only when he didn't hide his true form. He went in many guises, and won renown under many names, which we talked about in the previous episode. One of the Thingol, I think it was one of his names. He rode in the host of the Rohirrim, fought for the Lord of Gondor, went alone far into the east and deep into the south, exploring the hearts of men, both evil and good, and uncovering the plots and devices of the servants of Sauron. So his whole mission was, I'm going to go live and see things. It says here he became one of the best and hardy of men of Middle Earth. You know, he was skilled at all things, crafts and lore and hunting, elven wise. Um, his face was sad and stern, but there was a light in his eyes that when kindled few could endure, and his mirth could rise at times like a spring from a rock. And then here it says when he was 49 years old, he returned from Mordor and wished to go back to Rivendell and rest there before he journeyed into far countries. And on his way he came to Lorien. and was admitted to there by Lady Galadriel. He did not know it. This is important, but Arwen was also there at the same time, dwelling with the kin of her mother. She was little changed, as is normal for elves, although her face, it says here, was more grave, and her laughter a little less. She's matured a little bit. But it says here, Aragorn, in the meantime, had grown to full stature of body and mind. And Galadriel is like, hey, don't hide who you are. When you're within my halls, you are Aragorn, son of Arathorn, a man of Numenor, a man blessed with lineage, a man of great honor, and etc. Cast off your wayworn raiment, and she clothed him in silver and white with a cloak of elven gray and a bright gem on his brow. And it says, then, more than any other king of men, he appeared, and seemed rather an elf lord from the Isles of the West, like a true Numenorian. And it says here, this is Arwen's turn to get swept off her feet. When Arwen first beheld him again after their long parting, as he came walking towards her under the trees of Caras Galadhon, laden with flowers of gold, her choice became made and her doom appointed. So she saw him in his full form as a man and went, oh, my be still, my beating heart. I am reciprocating the feels, sir. Reciprocating those feels. So, yeah, both of them at this point are head over heels for each other. Um, and it says here, for a season they wandered together in the glades of Lothlorien until it was time for him to depart. Ah, so they had they had some fun in the forest. In other words, um, okay. So there says there was a time for him to depart, and on the evening of midsummer they went to Caran Amroth, plighted their troth, and were glad. So she's telling him, you're going to be the man to throw off, you're going to throw overthrow Sauron and destroy evil. And he's like, I can't see that future that you see, but I do utterly reject the shadow. Um, but they talk a little bit about here about, you, my lady, are of elven, and I am of human. Um, and if we want to be together, this literally is what he says. If you will cleave to me, Evanstar, then the twilight you must also renounce. And this is what Elrond said earlier. It's either going to be one of us who comes between Arwen, like, you know what I mean? And this is that moment happening. Said here, she stood as still as a white tree looking into the west, and at last she said, I will cleave to you, Dunedain, and turn far from the twilight. Yet there lies the land of my people and the long home of all my kin. And she was very sad here because she loved her father dearly. Um, and this is when Elrond gets a little he's a little upset. He gives Aragorn a stern talking to. There's a shadow that lies between us now because of this. He says, even though I still love you, um, at the very least, this is when this is when uh, this is when Elrond basically tells. I'm laughing a little. I might cry a little bit. This is a really cool part. This is where Elrond literally tells Aragorn, "Well, guess what? If you're pursuing my daughter, um, here's the thing. She's not gonna diminish her life's grace for a lesser cause. You will become the king of both Gondor and Arnor." So he's giving him a duty. Like, she's not going to be just be with some ranger from the north. You are going to become the king. You're going to throw down Sauron, and that my daughter's not giving up her immortality for anything less. Um, so then it gets, his mother ends up passing of old age. Says here we get upon the War of the Ring. Um, everything we've read in the books. The third age ended in victory and hope. When the great rings were unmade and the three shorn of their power, Elrond grew weary at last and forsook Middle Earth. Arwen became as a mortal woman here, and yet it was not her lot. And yet it was not her lot to die until all that she had gained was lost. Oh, that doesn't sound good. She lived with Aragorn for 60 years. That's 120 years in great growing bliss, until he finally felt the creep of old age. Um, And he told her at this point, man, I may cry a little bit here, but we'll see if I get through this. Lady Evenstar, fairest in this world and most beloved, my world is fading. Oof. Mention of their son, Eldarion. He laid himself down in the bed that had been prepared for him, said goodbye to his son, gave him the crown of Gondor and the scepter of Arnor, and then all left save for Arwen, and she stood alone by his bed. Oof. Oof. This is the emotional stuff here. For all her wisdom and lineage, she could not forbear to plead with him to stay yet for a while. She was not yet weary of her days, and thus tasted the bitterness of the mortality that she had taken upon her. Oh, and Aragorn's, yet this is a hard day, but it was made even in that day when we met under the white birches in the garden of Elrond, where none now walk. And on the hill of Cairn Amroth, oh my God, I'm gonna weep like a little child here. I am the last of the Númenóreans and the latest king of the elder days. Oh, man. I speak no comfort to you, for there is no comfort for such pain within the circles of the world. You have a choice. You can repent and go to the havens and bear way into the west, and our memories will remain evergreen, but never more than a memory. Or you can live by the doom of men. And she's like, no, that choice is long over. There is no ship that would bear me hence, and I must indeed abide the doom of men, whether I want it or not. Oh, man. She says, if this is the gift of the one to men, it is bitter to receive. And Aragorn replies, in sorrow we must go, but not in despair. We are not bound forever to the circles of this world, and beyond them is more than memory. Farewell. Oh my God, I'm gonna weep like a baby. Estel, Estel, she cried, and with that, even as he took her hand and kissed it, he fell into sleep. And a great beauty was revealed in him. And all who came after looked on him in wonder, for they saw the grace of his youth, and the valor of his manhood, and the wisdom of his majesty of his age were blended together, and long he there lay, in splendor of the kings of men, in glory undimmed before the breaking of the world. Man, powerful words. But Aragorn went forth from the house, with the light of her eyes quenched, and all the world became cold and gray. She said farewell to her son, to her daughters, to everything she loved, and she went out from Minas Tirith and passed away to the land of Lorien, and dwelt under the fading trees until winter came. Oh, she laid herself to rest upon Cairn Amroth, and there's her green grave until the world is changed. Holy shit. I was not ready for that. I'm so sorry, everybody. I did not anticipate um, tears in today's episode. So powerful. Oh man, I need a minute to compose myself. Just the loss, you know? Next week. Hopefully something a little more upbeat, I hope. It says here the House of Eorl, I think, is next week. They are obviously doing the upcoming film. I think it's called The War of the Rohirrim, which is going to be based on Eorl. I think most people are expecting good things because it's from Peter Jackson's team, even though it's an animated film. That drained me, everybody. I gotta try to recover some energy from that. I'll see everybody next week. Until then, stay safe. Happy reading.